This is the Team Objection podcast for August 6th, 2020, episode 447. No Dave.
I wish we could hack into Dave's laptop and just show the blank space to really rub it in.
Hold on, I might be able to do that mid-recording. There you go.
Not quite what I wanted, but what
Blank
if you did
frame.
it and there's a robber in Dave's house?
What if we did it and Dave was there? He's like,
Oh, shit.
oh no, I've been spotted.
Okay, don't explode on me, kombucha.
Let's see, it's looking good. Ooh, a little bubbly.
Okay, welcome, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
The kombucha is open. We are clear for takeoff.
Excellent.
I have a couple announcements that I'd like to make.
Okay.
I think, listeners, stay tuned for the next couple of weeks. We have some exciting topics to talk about. We're going to do the homework, finally.
No.
I don't think I've shared even the homework assignment yet on air. Or maybe I have. Either way, it's a surprise now, and you either know about it already or you don't. And that's going to happen. And then we're going to do the Final Fantasy VI retrospective. I think we should think of a better name for it than that. Something sexy and exciting. But that's coming down too. I was listening to a podcast. They did it with Final Fantasy IV. I think 6 is an infinitely more interesting game. So that should be really fun. And my dog is going crazy. Sorry. And then beyond that, though, Chris... I wanted to take advantage of the times that we live in, and I felt like the opportunity was too good to pass up talking about the bubble.
And we might have to bump one of those two topics you just mentioned on the off chance the Suns do the improbable and actually make the playoffs.
Oh my God, yeah. I don't give a shit about my
it again.
topics.
Yeah.
We're actually never going to get to the homework because there's always going to be something else that comes up. But yeah, I mean, them making the playoffs, it's like a chance now.
Yeah. A real chance. It's tricky, though.
So I need you to actually walk me through it because, like, I know teams need to keep losing, and I know we need to keep winning. But beyond that, I don't really know, like, why it's so much better of a chance now.
If you had to break down what would happen inside of the bubble to make it so the Suns had a mathematical chance, I think we're like 12 for 13 on outcomes so far. The teams that are ahead of them, between them and the Grizzlies, have pretty much lost consistently, and the Grizzlies have lost 5 straight. They lost a couple before the bubble, and now 3 straight in it. They're missing Jaren Jackson for the rest of the season. So all of a sudden, the Suns now, with the Spurs losing today, which is Wednesday, when we record, they're a half game back of the Pelicans, a half game back of the Spurs, a game and a half back of Portland, who's in 9th, and 2.5 back of Memphis, who is free-falling.
So I guess my question is, what, and this is very unlikely, but like, what's the rule? I was going to ask this, if Memphis actually falls behind us, are they still locked in that 8th seed?
I don't think so. I think if they fall out of it, I mean, that was the whole point of their advantage. They were up like 4 games at the start of this or something like that. And the idea was, well, they could fall out, but it'd be hard to do, so they're most likely to get that advantage. I mean, if the Suns finished, say, 8-0, which isn't going to happen, but let's say they did, and the Blazers jump the Grizzlies, which I think is going to happen, then I think it'd be Blazers-Suns. And the Suns have to beat the Blazers twice to get into the playoffs. I'm pretty sure that's how that works.
Okay. If Dave was here, he would know, but he's a shitty person and a shittier friend.
Yes.
So,
yes.
There's that. So, yeah, it was not easy getting here, though.
No.
I didn't watch the game. I didn't watch it.
What happened there?
I don't know. I just, without you there putting it on TV, I don't know that it's happening.
I was only watching it somewhat in the background because I was working. It was an election that day, so a busy day. But I watched a good maybe 2/3 of it, and it was on in the background, so I could pay attention when necessary. I obviously watched pretty much the entire 4th quarter, and it turns out that we had one of the better highlights of the season when Devin Booker hit a buzzer beater over 2 of the best defensive players in the league.
So that was cool. So. First of all, against the Clippers, it was like a good game the whole way through. It wasn't like they were blowing us out and we made a comeback or vice versa. It was tightly contested the whole way through.
I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop. I kept thinking to myself, well, when we lose this game, I'm going to be able to say to the guys in the text thread, I'm not that upset about it. Like, we had really good effort. We played well, and they were just a little bit better down the stretch. There's no shame in being a little bit less good than a title contender, and that just never happened. Every time the Clippers made a run, the Suns kept putting them back at arm's length.
Yeah. We finally found, I think, it's hard to say. What it looks like right now is a backup point guard in Payne. And even kind of slotting, like Carter has sort of found a niche as well too. I think partially because Payne has been so consistent. At least from what I've seen, it's allowed Carter to kind of play off ball more, really tap into his defensive capabilities without being a complete liability as a primary ball handler.
Yeah, I think that's true. I don't know. I think it was a little bit of fool's gold in that Clippers win. We barely eked out a victory, and we shot the lights out from three, which the Suns are not a very good three-point shooting team. They're not terrible, but they're below average. I think 19th in the NBA for the season, and we made like 52% from three that game. And a lot of that was to hold off the run in the third quarter. That was Payne hitting a couple of deep ones, like Carter hitting a couple. They were decent looks. Some of them were open. I'm not saying it was a complete fluke, but I do think it is a cautionary tale. The Clippers looked like they were sleepwalking. We were making a ton of threes, and we barely won.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't matter how much we won by. It counts as a win, which moved the Suns to 3-0 in the bubble. We all had predicted maybe 5-3.
Yep.
Now,
that's what's telling Maisie.
We have a weird situation coming up. We talked about the Mavericks being a team that we would split against when we predicted it. What we didn't predict was that the Mavericks were going to be terrible, and that the final game against them, if it does matter for the Suns, will not matter for them. They're pretty much stuck in 7th. They could still catch up. They're only 2.5 back with 5 to play. That doesn't happen very often. So it's possible that finale means nothing to the Mavericks because they're going to be locked into playing someone. By the way, maybe not the Clippers, who are only a half game up on the Nuggets now, but somebody in the 2nd seed. So they may not even care that final game. I actually think this Pacers game tomorrow/today when this airs is huge now.
I'm really nervous about this one.
Because TJ Warren, if he was the specter that ruined our still slim playoff chances, would be kind of sad.
That's why I'm so nervous about it, because it is the storybook ending of the cursed franchise that we expect. So like the reverse storybook, or like a Game of Thrones story, kind of. Like this is what you expect.
Yeah.
The most gut-punchingest gut punch. And that's what we're headed towards.
TJ Warren, for those who are not following this regularly, opened the bubble play with 53 points, far surpassing his previous career high of 40. He hit 9 threes. And the Pacers, who also have Victor Oladipo back after all, after he was kind of hedging if he'd play or not, are also playing really, really well. And the Suns' margin of error, despite things going about as perfect as possible so far, and this 3-0 start, is still razor thin. If they finish 4-4 after the 3-0 start, they're done. They're not making it. If they finish 6-2 after that 3-0 start, I'm still not positive they make it. It's going to depend. So there can't be any let up, and hopefully they bring that same intensity they have thus far, because all 3 games they've had that level of intensity. They slipped a little bit against the Wizards. The Wizards played weird because they're missing so many players.
Yeah.
There was a lot of ISO, a lot of jacked up 20-footers. Some of them were falling, and eventually they pulled away for a 15-point win. The Mavericks, Luka Doncic got about 750 fucking foul calls. They shot 6,000 free throws. Booker and Ayton were in foul trouble the entire game.
And we still won.
Very few of those are exaggerations. Still won. Dallas should be embarrassed. And then the Clippers, like you said, just a good matchup both ways. Like a really good quality of play on both sides. Some good defensive plays, some good offense, and the Suns managed to eke one out.
Well, so I have a couple of questions. So you talked about fool's gold. Ricky Rubio, 3-point shooting specifically. I agree with you on Payne and Carter. And we actually saw that from Carter earlier in the season when the Suns played the Clippers again.
Yep.
So for some, Carter has the Clippers number, and I don't know why, and I don't know how, but he does. Ricky Rubio has really impressed me with his shooting. He has never shot the 3 this well. And my question is that he's a little fresher, and that's helping, or is it just an aberration?
I want to see what Rubio's shooting from 3 this year. I know the stat I last saw, and I don't think it's been updated since the bubble play started. But I think I told you this when we were watching one of the games. He's shooting 39% on catch and shoot 3s. Now, everybody shoots better on catch and shoot 3s than pull up 3s, except maybe Lillard, Curry, Harden, the guys who handle the ball a ton. So this is not an aberration per se. But if he eliminates the dribble 3s and focuses only on getting catch and shoot opportunities, whether that's Booker creating or something else, if he gets to like 35% from 3, That's fine.
Yep.
He doesn't need to be a 40% shooter, and he is shooting 36.4% from 3 this year.
What is Ayton shooting from 3 in the bubble? Or for the year, I guess you could say,
well,
even.
I think for the year, he was like 0 for 7 before the bubble.
Oh, I didn't even know he shot any during the year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure a couple of those were end of quarters. A couple of them were like shot clock things. I'm not convinced more than a couple of those were actually intended looks. But just with the time he's had in the bubble, I don't have the totals. He's shooting 33%. And assuming that 0 for 7 is in there,
I feel like he's missed he's taken 4 and missed 1 or something
so
like
it could
that.
have been 0 for 7. Must have been, maybe that was 0 for 7 in his career. If that's the case, he'd be 3 for 6 in the bubble.
Okay.
Which is 50%. Now, again, he doesn't need to be shooting a high volume of those. He's still better off on the interior, doing the things he does best, but they ran a side out of bounds play for him, and a couple other times he had no defender in a 10-mile radius. Zubac was like, I don't even care to be outside the free throw line on this, and didn't look too good when it went in both times. It seems viable. I mean, obviously, you say fool's gold. I also think back to all the other times we've been tricked by any small flashes of promising play, including about 18 other backup point guard candidates, which is why I'm a little hesitant with Campaign. I will say he's done everything he could so far. He's been active. He seems to be really good in the clubhouse. He's shooting when he needs to in the flow of the offense, and he's making some shots. I think I'm a little bit worried that it's like, okay, we're just so unused to seeing any capable backup point guard play that when we get a decent flash of it, we're like, oh my God, this is it. I'm not saying that you are overreacting per se. Even with how he's played, we're not like, Campaign's the answer.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm still a little bit hesitant because I'm like, I don't know.
The thing is, even if he regresses, he's a sight better than what we've had before. There was a play, he drove it and dished it to Booker cutting baseline. I can't think of a time Tyler Johnson ever did anything like that. So like that distributing talent, I think, is something that we have sorely missed, and he kind of fills that in.
And I think his intensity's been good on defense. He's still undersized, so I'm not sure how good he's ever going to be at that. But him and Payne together him and Javon Carter together has been a pretty interesting defensive pairing. Again, I don't know if that lasts long term, but in the short term, especially if they bring that same effort, there's probably something there. Bridges,
maybe not the all-star that I was saying he was in the scrimmages, still playing really well.
Yep.
Defense is great, and it was his tip that it led to Booker's amazing turnaround shot, which NBA.com rated 5 Oris out of 5. It's a stupid scale.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make any sense, but for what it's worth. And then Cam Johnson. So adding to, we're shooting better than we have in the season, but I think part of that is Cam Johnson is a much better three-point shooter than Dario Saric, for example.
That's unfair. Saric is shooting like 60% from 3 in the bubble.
Well, okay.
Bad example. Literally anybody else on the roster, including Kelly Oubre.
Well, that's kind of like what this kind of stuff happens, and the smart basketball player inside me is like, it's you go with the best people. Talent wins out. But then the other side of me is like, I'm really nervous to change up this chemistry. And like, what happens next year? Do we bring Oubre off the bench? And I'm getting way ahead of myself. But like, these are the things I think about when this core is playing really pretty solid right now.
Yeah, I think they really need Baines back. Mm-hmm. And it's been not really all that clear. He was obviously diagnosed with COVID and has been going through the protocol to return. He's with the team, so he's obviously not currently suffering from it. Is he having long-term issues? Is he having trouble breathing? We're not entirely sure. We haven't heard much. But boy, Frank Kaminsky's been terrible.
Terrible.
And DeAndre Ayton can't play 48 minutes. And I don't really like Saric at the 5. He's much better as the 4. So, either Kaminsky's got to get his head out of his ass, or Baines has to return, or both, because that's the one glaring weakness I see. Now, you can get by in some matchups without having as many bigs on the floor. The NBA is trending that way. But there's going to be a couple teams coming up here where I'm like, I don't think that's going to work if Kaminsky is going to be unplayable.
Well, so you just led me to my second question, which is, like, let's walk through the remaining games. I don't have them memorized, but let's from a fresh perspective now. Because we did some estimates. We knew we were going to beat Washington. We thought we were going to split Dallas. We had this Clippers game pegged as a loss.
Mm-hmm.
So we've won all of them. So that's weird. But now in this remaining 5 games, what are we looking at?
This is where it gets tricky.
Pacers are next.
We have every other day except a back-to-back, which will be interesting on Monday and Tuesday. Pacers are next, and I'm more worried about that than I was going in. I would have chalked that up as, I don't know about a sure win, but I certainly would have picked the Suns in that matchup. And then the Pacers started just going crazy. It's tricky to me. They are also 3-0, and they have beaten up on 2 shitty teams as part of this. Now, the win over the 76ers was quality, but it took Warren going out of his mind, and they beat the Wizards and the Magic. The Magic have also been pretty terrible in the bubble. So how much of that's real? I don't know. As a guy who's a fan of the Suns, and they're 3-0, how much of that's real? I think it's more real than the Pacers, but both are 3-0. Could be scary. The Heat, I don't know. Dragic tweaked his ankle for what feels like the 4,000th time, but they only seem to give us trouble when we play them.
Yep.
That team approach as opposed to stars also seems to give us some trouble at times. And the one that scares me the most is the Thunder.
They have not been playing well, though, which I like. Normally, I completely agree with you. They just, again, the Heat and OKC, when I was going into this, I was like, great. Like, those are like the 2 teams that weirdly always seem to get us. But they have not been playing great. I feel it. I feel like they lost like 2 of 3 games.
2-1.
Oh.
Beat the shit out of the Jazz. Beat the shit out of the Lakers. Lost to the Nuggets in overtime.
Oh, okay.
So
you can't trust me,
Well, I know, but that's the problem. That's what's interesting, though, right? It's like impression versus reality. Because like my first thought would have been like, yeah, but I remember when they beat the Lakers today, I was like, oh, and they beat them going away. It was like by 20 points, I think. And that was the point where I was like, I don't know. There's something about that. The idea of campaign trying to guard like Chris Paul scares the shit out of me.
Yeah. Well, and I think I confused a little bit OKC with Memphis, who has been terrible.
Yeah.
So I mean, we could be as good as we started. We could be looking at 3 straight losses.
The Thunder, before they play us, have the Grizzlies and the Wizards. I don't know if that's a good thing.
So they'll be fresh.
I don't know if that's a bad thing. They're going to have 2 more wins on their mantle almost certainly by then. Yeah, they could be fresh. They're the team that worries me the most also because they have the most to play for. The 4th seed is very much in play for them. They technically still have an outside shot at better than that, but again, there's just not that many games left. But they're only a half game back of the Jazz as of this minute. So they could be a top 4 seed. Now, home doesn't really matter for the playoffs, obviously, but still, the better the seed, the worse team you're playing in the first round. So they have a lot to play for. And then Sixers are such a weird matchup. And Ben Simmons left the game today with a knee injury. It doesn't seem like it's major. But I don't know.
I think we can beat the Sixers. I don't know. I'm getting deja vu from the beginning of this season where we were playing really well. We beat the Clippers. We beat the Sixers.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we can beat the Sixers. I just like, it's a gut feeling. I'm like 0 for 2 on gut feelings in this episode alone, but I think we can beat them. And then who's after the Sixers?
The Mavs, which at this point I'm writing as a win no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, I said that old adage of beating the same team twice still makes me nervous, but I mean, I think you're right. So
as many nagging injuries as both Doncic and Porzingis have had, to me it'd be foolish to play them in that game if they had nothing to play for.
So I mean, as good as we started, it very much still it play like 4-4. Like that's still a realistic outcome here.
Potentially. And like I said, even if they go 2-3 the rest of the way, 5-3 is probably not going to get done. So that's the tricky part, is like they've done well to this point. It's exciting. It's cool that they have even any shot whatsoever, because they could have easily gone 1-2 in this opening stretch, like, beat the Wizards, but then lose that game against the Mavs, which was close, lose that game against the Clippers, and we're like, well, they're done.
Yeah.
Even with the other games breaking the way they did, they'd still be pretty much done if that had happened. So it's cool that actually has relevance now, and what I like about it is even if the rest of this goes terrible, I'm still pleased, and we had like a cool, memorable moment out of it, and we know they showed up and tried hard. To me, if they can go 2-1 in these next 3, I think they have a very real chance. No matter what's left with the Sixers and the Mavericks, I think that's a very real chance.
What sucks here is, though, they could go 8-0. and they could be the or whatever.
Yeah.
But it hurts more if it's 8-0 and then they go into the play-in team and then they lose. And it's going to be especially heartbreaking when they win the first one of those two games and then they lose the very last game that they had to win.
It would hurt, but we'd get curb stomped by the Lakers anyways, so I wouldn't be that upset by it, to be honest.
But
the fact they even had a chance against those odds, to me, would be a huge positive indicator for next season.
Yeah.
I don't think there'd be any shame in clawing their way into the 8-9 play-in game and not being able to win 2 in a row against the same team. Because like you said, it's difficult. And in this spot, it's for everything. So it's going to be really difficult, especially because I assume it's going to be Portland, who is fully healthy and really shouldn't be down here if they had been healthy all year.
Yeah. Yep.
Which, of course, then would have negated the whole thing. If the Blazers had been healthy all year and they were, 5 games above 500, the Suns would have been out of reach, and damn near everybody would have been out of reach except for the Grizzlies. So it might have been like the East where one team got invited. The Suns never would have had a shot to begin with. But when they inevitably pass Memphis and then everybody else starts passing Memphis, I don't know. Again, if you assume the Grizzlies are going to keep losing, I mean, they're 2 games up on the Spurs in 10th right now. But if the Grizzlies don't win a game, the Spurs could pass them. We obviously could pass them. It's another avenue that we didn't necessarily think we might have before. Before, the assumption was we just got to get to 9th, and then we'll figure out how to beat the Grizzlies twice. Well, now you still have to probably get to 9th, but you have another team to catch that might be easier than you thought it would be.
What's a way to quickly look that up? That's the only lingering doubt in my mind is like, I just want to make sure that it's not some weird rule where like Memphis is guaranteed that spot to be beaten no matter how bad they do. That doesn't make sense to me.
No, it's just the seeds as far as I know.
Okay.
I'm not 100%, but it's got to be like 95. Because it doesn't make it, like I said, if Memphis loses 8 straight games and 3 teams pass them, like why the hell would they be invited?
Yeah, exactly.
What was the point of the games then?
I would almost think they would have to like amend it if that was the case, because that would be unreal.
Yeah.
You have the Suns, let's say they go 8-0, Memphis goes 0-8, but they're the ones that go into the playoffs. That's crazy.
So because the Suns suck, or at least they did, they are in the afternoon or the late morning in almost all of these games. But that means that tomorrow, when this episode's basically airing, if they beat the Pacers, they jump into 10th, and they're a game back of the Blazers.
Jeez.
Before anybody else's results are known. Because I think the Pelicans play again tomorrow, so they could win and jump back ahead of us, whatever. But that's how big that game is tomorrow, because of everything that's happened thus far.
I think it would be cool if we played the Blazers and lost to them in the play-in, because that's what would happen. But I like the Blazers. I've always kind of liked them ever since they stopped being the Jailblazers. I didn't really like them that much, but I think Damian Lillard and his support of Booker meant a lot to me. And I'm like, you know what? They're okay.
I hate the Blazers.
Okay.
I don't know why. They're one of those teams I just irrationally hate. The Mavericks are also quickly climbing that list, even though I don't hate rather any of those players individually all that much. And the same is true of Portland, other than Melo, who has been playing better than expected, to his credit, but the hell with him. I don't really dislike any of them. Like, there's nothing wrong with McCollum or Lillard, and I've always kind of liked Nurkic. I was on his train early. Zach Collins has a punchable face, but seems nice. Like, there's plenty of good stuff there. Always hated him. I don't know if that goes back to the playoffs, back in the Nash runs, or what, but because like Jared Bayless still comes to mind when I think of the Blazers, and that's not fair. He played for like 14 teams.
Oh, yeah, but even when we played them in that playoffs, I didn't hate them. Like Marcus Camby, Brandon Roy, all those guys. Like,
didn't hate.
No, Jared Bayless. Yeah, I mean, fuck that guy.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a team that I irrationally hate. OKC, kind of, but I still remember the days of Chris Paul. Like, wherever Chris Paul goes, I hate that team. He's such a little asshole.
Mm-hmm.
Ever since he was with the Clippers, and so I don't like OKC.
He, to me, nobody talks about this, but he's the closest to Jordan in the modern era. Not game style of play, but the competitiveness, the relentless drive to win that makes him act out in all these ways and look for every conceivable tiny edge he can get. I'm sure if we had him, we would love that behavior, but it's basically like the star player version of a Lou Amundsen or a role type player that you just hate because they work every little sliver of edge they can get, and it's like frustrating as a fan.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm fine with if I have no qualms with playing the Blazers and having to beat them twice to get in. If that's the final scenario here, because we're only a game and a half behind Portland, but I think they're going to have the best chance of having the 8th seed, and it's not that close.
Well, but I mean, I don't know what Memphis' schedule looks like coming up. here, but they are playing bad and they have lost some players, and so like it's conceivable that we pass them. I feel like it's really tough though. I feel like they have to lose out and we have to win out or something crazy.
You want to know what they have left? Jazz, Thunder, Raptors, Celtics, Bucks.
Yikes!
Now, the Bucks may not play anybody in that final game because they have the number 1 seed on lock, but everybody else has something to play for there to some extent. And I said Jazz. They played that today, so they only have 4 games left.
And they lost to the Jazz
today.
They
lost. Yeah.
So
because again, they're 5 straight losses, but 3 of those in the bubble. So yeah, Thunder, Raptors, Celtics, Grizzlies, the top 3 teams in the East, and the Thunder who are playing really well. So like, yeah, it's possible they don't win a single game. Now that leaves them at 32 and 41. The Suns are 29 and 39. So to tie Memphis, they'd have to go 3-2, even if Memphis loses out, which is why they were in such a bad spot to begin with. This is kind of that example we were talking about. What would the Suns have to do? Well, Memphis only needed 2 wins to clinch a tie with Phoenix at the start of all this. So even though Memphis hasn't won a game yet, and the Suns have won all of theirs, the margin for error there is still really small.
Okay. Yeah.
But it exists, and we probably wouldn't have thought that it would going into this, and now 3-2 for the Suns is not unreasonable, and 0-4 for the Grizzlies sure as hell isn't. So, yeah, we could catch them.
I mean, my hope is that no matter what, like making the playoffs would be great. It's still kind of a pipe dream. It's just a slightly more realistic pipe dream now. My hope is that no matter what, we're going to take this momentum into next season because we're playing really well. We're kind of seeing some of that potential. We keep getting players up potential and they keep not delivering. We're kind of seeing that now. We're seeing how good Ayton and Booker can be together. Bridges and Cam Johnson are stepping up. Ricky Rubio is, the most, how do you say it? Like, he's the most valuable person on the team, even if he's not the best player, sort of thing. He's what makes our offense run. So like this is a playoff team going into next year. If we have it next year,
especially if you add something to it.
Yeah.
Which they could do.
Well, with no Kelly right now, he's hurt.
Yeah. Which is, we talked after the episode we did last time about how that 5-3 was kind of contingent upon Kelly playing, and he hasn't been and doesn't seem like he's going to, and they're doing it without him. Now their wing depth is still a major issue. It's why they're playing Campaign and Javon Carter together, because they just don't have the 2s and 3s they need right now. So maybe that'll be an issue down the road, but yeah, it's all encouraging right now. I'll tell you one thing that's not encouraging, by the way. Blazers finish against the Nets.
Well, the Nets upset the Bucks, so
I know, sitting any of their reasonably good players still. And the Bucks didn't try that hard. Like Giannis and Middleton didn't play the fourth quarter, but they did play. And the Nets held out any of their decent players like Karis LeVert, and the rest of them are all injured or out with coronavirus. So, yeah, I mean, it's no cakewalk. Memphis won't be either. I mean, they're still out there trying, but it's still probably a win there. They have Nuggets, Clippers, Sixers, Mavs before the Nets.
So by this time next week, by the time we do another show, what are we going to know? And I guess what I'm asking is how many games will be left by that point?
None.
What about the play-in?
One.
Like if it happens to that?
One, because they'll play the Sixers at 1:30 next Tuesday.
Okay.
And they have a game against the Mavericks at an unknown time, which is weird, on Thursday.
Okay.
Next week's show airs. I don't know when the play-in games are slotted for. I would assume Saturday, and then I don't know when the second one would be if necessary. Maybe Sunday. That's the tricky part. Is like they had to postpone all the first round games until that play-in game's decided. So they can't wait too long.
So originally there was no guarantee of a play-in, right? Like had Memphis just taken care of business, they would not. It's not a guarantee that they play whoever's in the 9th seed. Yeah. There has to be a certain gap.
4 games, yeah. So if they had gone like 6-2 in the bubble and they hadn't lost Jackson and all that jazz, yeah, they could have just made it so that there was no play-in. And the same is true in the East. We assume there won't be a play-in game because the Wizards aren't going to catch anybody you would think, especially since the Nets did beat the Bucks. Like the chances of the Wizards catching them now, I think, still exist. But
the Wizards are terrible. I mean, really, they probably shouldn't even been invited.
Does the chance still exist? No, they're eliminated. They're like 7.5 back.
Okay.
Because they've lost every game in the bubble.
Who's gone undefeated now? The Suns, obviously. Indiana.
The Pacers, and that's it.
Oh, that's sad and scary. But it's the Pacers. It's just Indiana.
Hilariously, the Wizards have fallen behind the Hornets, who aren't there. Now that doesn't matter. The draft spots were locked in before this, but it just looks funny. Hornets not even invited to play, still moving up the standings.
Oh, so even if the Suns jump up, their draft spot is locked as well?
If I remember that correctly, that's the case. Yes.
That's actually good then, because we're getting a little bit better odds, but still it's jumping up.
And it also incentivized winning.
Yeah.
So that teams wouldn't try and tank in the bubble and drop down below other teams in the bubble or outside of it. I think that was the idea behind it, was to make sure it was still competitive and people were trying. And as such, the Suns going on a good run and even just climbing to 10th or whatever would still not hurt them in that sense. They still probably have the 9th or 10th worst record for the purpose of lottery balls, something like that, because there were 8 teams that weren't invited in. Yeah.
Maybe we get the number 1 pick this year in a somewhat weak draft, but still.
One's better than 9.
Yeah.
Or 12 when 3 teams jump above us.
Yeah, exactly.
So plenty of reasons to be optimistic. Again, because I've been hurt before, I'm not like, oh yeah, this is definitely going to happen now. But honestly, I'm just overjoyed at the fact that it's even a conversation. That's cool.
We've had 3 fun games to watch so far. So yeah.
So we get stomped by 20 by Indiana tomorrow. That's going to be a downer. But, we've at least had this to this point, which, again, we could have lost to the Wizards and just been like, all right, we're done. That's it. It's over.
Yep.
So that's cool.
The last thing I wanted to say really quick here is I don't really like the Sixers, but I kind of find myself wishing they do a little bit better because of Matisse Thybulle and his vlog. He's cool, and some of the team members seem cool. I want to like them. I don't really, but it's made an impact.
Yeah, I don't know what they're going to do. Teams keep trying to figure out what they're going to do next. They try and keep both Simmons and Embiid. I don't think it's going to work. Right now, again, Simmons is out, so who knows? It's Embiid's time to shine. It's a weird situation. Like you said, I think I'm with you as far as Matisse's blog has been a lot of fun, and they do seem likable. It's really improved my perception of Tobias Harris.
Yeah. Yeah.
But am I rooting for them in the playoffs? No.
No.
Not really. And am I rooting for them against us? Obviously, no. Neither one of us would be, but if we ever need DeAndre Ayton, that's the game. If for some reason we are still in contention and we need that win, he has to be huge that game. If he gets dominated by Embiid, especially if Bane still isn't playing, we're done. We're done. We do not win that game unless Ayton shows up at least decently. He doesn't have to put up 30 and 15, but he's got to be on the floor. He's got to be present. And he's got to be having an impact. So it's still, like I said, it's nice to just be discussing the merits of the basketball game as though it's going to matter, and not just we had a good run the first couple games, and, we'll just hope that we can build on that momentum, get a couple more wins by the end of this, and have that going for next season. Hell no, we want the playoffs. Well,
and it's funny because, and this is such a weird, loaded, stupid thing to say, but where were we at this time last year? Well, the finals had already ended, but the point is we had stopped caring probably, or I had especially January, maybe February at the absolute latest.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's, we had a little bit of a hiatus, but we're talking about meaningful Suns basketball this late into the season, and that is something that we haven't done for a long time, for years.
Yeah, I mean the Suns are playing in August, which is after the NBA Finals. So they must be doing really good.
Yeah, there you go. I remember last time it was that we were eliminated from getting to the playoffs by the Jazz, and I was watching that game at the bar at Native New Yorker. I think you might have been there too.
Might have.
That was the last time Suns basketball really mattered late into the season.
Yep. And I mean, those examples the last 10 years are few and far between. Like you said, there's the one season we almost made it and a couple other decent years in there. And everything else has been, like you said, out of contention by February, if not sooner. And even if you're not officially eliminated by January, there's been plenty of seasons there where we're 20 games under 500 at that point. You're like, well, we might not be mathematically eliminated, but we're done.
Yeah.
We know. We're not idiots. So... Yep, I'm thrilled to just be into the discussion and to be watching meaningful basketball. Even if it doesn't pan out, and it probably won't, just that experience reminds me oh, this is why I'm sticking with this team. Maybe it'll pay off one day.
Well, and it's getting Booker some playoff experience, in a weird way. These are highly competitive games that matter a lot. There's a lot of pressure, and he's delivering. Mm-hmm. So that's very promising.
Yeah, but he's empty stats.
Yeah, right.
he's never gonna be a winner.
Well, that's what I was you had brought up that game against the Clippers, and what was so impressive to me is, we got a fluke. It was like that Robert Horry thing where like the shot wasn't a fluke, but to get him the ball was kind of a fluke. But the play before that was just like vintage clutch Booker, just dribbling it down to the elbow and draining it. So
and he's not forcing things.
Yeah,
he's getting to 30-ish. He had 27 the first game, but he's getting to 30 pretty easily. And interestingly enough, I saw this stat after the game Tuesday. Since his rookie season, so the 3 seasons after that, 3, right? 2, whatever it is. After his rookie season, he has more games of 30 plus than he does less than 20.
Interesting. On efficient shooting for the most part.
Yeah. I mean, he has off games. Anybody has off games.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a delight watching Jason Tatum go 2 for 17. That Jason Tatum is not that bad of a player. He's pretty damn good.
Yeah.
But it was awful fun watching it happen. Well, everybody has off games like that, and Booker's no exception, but he is really playing within this offense, and he seems to actually trust his teammates, which must be tough for him because his teammates have been absolute fucking garbage for the better part of his career.
I just love, this is the stuff that matters to me, is like when they went into the locker room. I don't know if you saw this, like a bunch of the teammates were waiting with like, I don't know what it was. I don't think it was champagne, but it was water bottles and shit. And they just soaked him and they were having fun. He was having fun. And it's like, to me, that's so important.
Yep. They could lose out and that would be a bummer and kind of a downer, certainly. But like just those experiences matter. Just to have a young team realize the importance of winning and being able to come up clutch in a big spot against a team that wasn't holding back. Again, maybe the Clippers weren't totally into that game for whatever reason, but it wasn't like they were resting people. It wasn't like they weren't trying. I mean, both Kawhi and Paul George came alive in the fourth quarter, and it wasn't enough.
Yep.
And that's cool. It really is. So, that's about it. So, bye, Dave. He can listen to the show and see what we talked about and pretend like he's chiming in, but he won't. Doesn't get to.
I can't wait for him to be like, you guys missed a stat or you misspoke about something. You know he's going to do it. He's going to find something.
It's fine. We'll let him have it. That's all he's got. Next week, we'll see. We have those topics that Shaun mentioned. It's possible the Suns win 4 more games. I don't think so. And then that will certainly be what we talk about next week because the hell with it. And we're going to ride this as long as we possibly can. But we'll see. We'll see. At some point after the season's done, hopefully after they've had a playoff series, we'll do an end of the season look back. It's going to be really weird this year compared to most, but next week we'll see. Could be Final Fantasy VI. We'll tell you in the beginning. You know what the drill is. In between episodes, you can find us at our website, objectionnetwork.com, or at youtube.com/objectionnetwork for new videos. Now that I'm back in town, that was a long story. I didn't want to go into it on the air, but new videos are coming every day now again, so stay tuned for that. Goodbye.